Marcel always hated when his brother, Reese, who was just 2 years older than him, had his friends over. They always made a mess, devoured everything in the fridge, and worst of all, hogged the TV to play video games, making Marcel miss his favorite shows. The only exception was Taylor, the one best friend of Reese's that Marcel actually looked forward to seeing. Taylor was responsible, considerate, sweet, and most importantly, attractive, completely unlike Reese and his other friends. Taylor would pause their games just to let Marcel watch his shows, and even cleaned up after himself, which no one else bothered to do. Even though Taylor called him Shorty, Marcel didn't mind. At least Taylor noticed him. Marcel had harbored a huge crush on Taylor since the very first day he came over. Every time Taylor visited, Marcel felt a rush of excitement and always looked forward to his arrival. He'd carefully pick out his clothes and wander around the house, hoping to catch Taylor's attention. Deep down, Marcel knew Taylor probably only saw him as Reese's younger brother, but he was content to silently enjoy his little crush. When Reese finished high school and left for college, Marcel was thrilled there would be no more of his annoying brother and his obnoxious friends, but that also meant no more Taylor. The thought of not seeing Taylor again hit him hard, and his heart sank even further when he learned Taylor wasn't just leaving for college, he and his family were relocating to another country. Marcel was devastated. He'd never see Taylor again, and he hadn't even confessed his feelings. On Taylor's last visit to their house, Marcel mustered the courage to write him a letter, pouring all his feelings into it. He secretly slipped the letter into Taylor's bag before he left, reasoning that since they'd never see each other again, there was no risk of embarrassment. When the day came for Taylor to leave, Marcel stayed in his room, dramatically crying his eyes out. Reese, oblivious, poked his head in and quipped, "Are you crying because I'm leaving? I knew you always pretended to hate me. My hate for you is real though." Marcel rolled his eyes and buried his face back in his pillow, continuing his over-the-top sobbing. 2 years had passed, and Marcel thought his one-sided love was a thing of the past, until the day their math teacher introduced a familiar face as the new intern teaching assistant. Marcel's eyes widened, and his heart skipped a beat when he saw Taylor. Taylor looked straight at him, his heart-melting smirk as charming as ever, making Marcel's heart race. The teacher announced a surprise quiz, prompting groans from the class as Taylor began distributing the papers. Marcel couldn't take his eyes off Taylor, still processing his shock. When Taylor reached Marcel's seat, he handed him a paper and said with a teasing grin, "Hey, Shorty, it's only been 2 years, and you already look bigger." Marcel's thoughts raced. Only 2 years? To him, it had felt like 1,000, with every day dragging by without seeing Taylor. Back when Reese came home during breaks, Marcel would eavesdrop whenever Reese was on the phone with Taylor, who always spoke on speaker. Hearing Taylor's voice even from afar was his only solace. But now, the Taylor Marcel thought he'd never see again was standing in front of him. The memory of the letter he'd written flooded back, making his heart race. Had Taylor read it? Marcel really hoped he hadn't. Taylor showed no sign of knowing, treating Marcel just as he always had. During the quiz, Marcel kept glancing at Taylor. Taylor noticed and strolled over, leaning down slightly with his trademark smirk. "Do I have the answers on my face? Shorty?" he said in a low raspy voice. Embarrassed, Marcel quickly looked away and pretended to focus on his work. The rest of the day passed without much interaction. Taylor was either in the staff room or attending staff meetings. As soon as Marcel got home, he stormed over to Reese. "Did you know Taylor is back? And that he's interning at my school?" Reese gave a casual nod. Grabbing Reese's collar, Marcel shook him. "And you didn't think to tell me?" Before Reese could reply, a familiar voice chimed in from behind. "Are you two talking about me?" Marcel froze, letting go of Reese, and turned to see Taylor standing there. Trying to compose himself, he waved shyly. "Hey." Reese shot Marcel a judgmental look before dragging Taylor toward his room, saying, "Finally, you're here." Marcel trailed behind them, but just as they entered Reese's room, Reese slammed the door in his face with a smug smirk. Marcel clenched his fists, wishing he could strangle his brother. He kept an ear out for when Taylor would leave. The moment he heard Reese's door open, Marcel rushed over with his math homework in hand. "Hey, can you help me with this?" he asked Taylor. Taylor smiled, ruffling Marcel's hair. "I'm kind of your teacher now. I can't give you special treatment. You've got this. I know you can do it." Waving goodbye, Taylor fist bumped Reese before leaving. While sulking in disappointment, Reese offered, I can help you with your homework, but Marcel deadpanned, no, I'd probably get a 0 if I let you. As Reese tried to defend himself, Marcel slammed the door in his face as revenge. The following days were much the same. Marcel only got to see and interact with Taylor during math class, and their conversations were limited to maths. He made it a point to stare at Taylor just enough during class to get his fill for the day. Whenever Taylor visited their house, Reese would immediately whisk him away to his room. Marcel couldn't help but grow suspicious. Was something going on between them? One day, Marcel finally asked Reese, is there something going on between you and Taylor? Reese was in disbelief. What? Of course not. Why would you even think that? Marcel pressed on. Then why do you always take him to your room every time he comes over? What are you guys even doing in there? Reese rolled his eyes. We're playing games, obviously. And it's all because of you. We can't use the big TV out here. How is that my fault? Marcel shot back. Reese explained, it was Taylor's idea. He didn't want to use the TV in case the noise bothered you since your room's nearby. He also said you should be able to watch your favorite shows in peace. Hearing that, Marcel couldn't stop a shy smile from spreading across his face. He really said that? Reese squinted at him suspiciously. Do you like Taylor? Marcel froze, the smile vanishing as he scrambled to deny it. But Reese added, don't lie. I know you too well. After a moment of hesitation, Marcel straightened up and put on a bold front. Yeah, I like him. So what? Reese said out loud. I knew it, but you can't like him. Why not? Marcel demanded. Because he already has a girlfriend, Reese said bluntly. Marcel felt his heart shatter. Reese wouldn't lie about something like that, but Marcel wasn't ready to accept it. You're lying, he insisted. You just don't want us to be together. I'll still like him. Reese shrugged. Do whatever you want. Just don't come crying to me when you find out I wasn't lying. I can't wait to say, I told you so. With that, he walked away. Marcel trudged to his room, holding back tears. As if the universe wanted to crush him further, the very next day in class, Marcel noticed a commotion by the window. His classmates were giggling and pointing at something outside. Curious, he went to look and saw Taylor standing close to a stunning woman. They were smiling at each other, looking undeniably in love. The class buzzed with excitement, with everyone commenting on how cute the couple looked together. Marcel's stomach churned with jealousy. Then, the woman leaned in and kissed Taylor on the cheek. The entire classroom erupted in cheers as Taylor looked up at them, rubbing the back of his neck shyly. Marcel quietly returned to his seat, swallowing the lump in his throat. He held back his tears all the way home. When he saw Reese, Marcel simply said, Say it. Say what? Reese asked, genuinely confused. I saw Taylor with his girlfriend today. You can say it. I told you so, Marcel insisted. Marcel broke into loud sobs. Reese sighed, opening his arms and motioning with his head. Come here. Marcel paused mid-cry. Never. This is a once-in-a-lifetime offer. Take it before I change my mind, Reese said. Marcel hesitated, then gave in, walking into Reese's embrace. Reese patted his back lightly. Marcel decided it was time to let go of his feelings for Taylor. It wasn't easy, but he resolved to move on, focusing on finishing high school and getting into college. Luckily, Taylor's internship ended soon after, making it easier for Marcel to avoid him and gradually forget. Still, Taylor occasionally came by the house whenever Reese was home. During those visits, Marcel would stay in his room, refusing to come out until he was absolutely sure Taylor had left, double-checking with Reese every time. Noticing this behavior, Taylor once asked Reese, Am I overthinking? Or is your brother purposely avoiding me? Did I do something wrong? Reese just sighed and shrugged. On the first day, Marcel stood outside the boys' dormitory with his luggage, unsure how to carry it all to his room and too shy to ask anyone for help. Reese, who had been tasked by their parents to accompany him and ensure he got settled, had ditched him to join a basketball game they'd passed on their way in. As Marcel stood there, gripping the handle of his heaviest bag, a hand suddenly grabbed it, brushing against his fingers. He turned around to see Taylor, smiling that same heart-melting smile. Marcel's heart raced, and he internally screamed at himself to stop. I've moved on. Hey, shorty, Taylor said. Need help with your luggage? Flustered, Marcel stammered. No need. My brother will be here soon to help me. I came with him. Taylor chuckled. Well, your brother asked me to come help you. Marcel muttered under his breath. That traitor. Reese hadn't even mentioned that Taylor was attending the same school. Still determined to manage on his own, Marcel protested. I can handle it myself. He tried lifting one of the bags, but it didn't budge an inch. Taylor laughed and stepped in. Let me help. He effortlessly picked up 3 bags, leaving Marcel with the ones that had wheels. When they got to Marcel's room, Taylor set the luggage down and offered to help him unpack, but Marcel refused. Taylor didn't push, instead asking, Are you okay sharing a room? I noticed it's a double. He seemed genuinely concerned. Marcel assured him, I'll be fine, as long as my roommate isn't loud or messy. Taylor nodded and said, If you need anything, just find me. He gave Marcel his room number before turning to leave. Then, as if remembering something, he turned back, took Marcel's phone, and added his number. He called his own phone to save Marcel's number too. You can text or call if you can't find me. After Taylor left, Marcel slumped to the ground, clutching his racing heart. He had thought he'd moved on, but it was clear his feelings hadn't faded. The school's big, he told himself. Maybe I won't have to see him often. But in the days that followed, Taylor was everywhere. No matter where Marcel went, Taylor somehow was there too, dragging him to eat together, pulling him into club activities, introducing him to new friends, and just hanging out. Eventually, Marcel gave up. Moving on wasn't going to happen. His feelings for Taylor were still there, and the more time they spent together, the harder it was to deny them. Marcel's roommate was the worst. He was everything Marcel despised: loud, messy, inconsiderate, and unhygienic. He never asked permission before using Marcel's things, rarely showered, and had even brought bedbugs into their dorm room. The infestation left Marcel with sleepless nights and bite marks all over his arms and neck. Despite reporting the issue to dorm management, nothing had been done. Marcel felt utterly helpless. He even broke down crying one night, overwhelmed by the stress and discomfort, wishing he could just go home. To cover the bites, Marcel started wearing long sleeves every day, despite the sweltering heat. When Taylor noticed Marcel wearing them far too often, he couldn't help but ask why. Just then, he caught sight of red spots on Marcel's neck. Moving closer to examine the spots, he gently tugged at Marcel's collar to get a better look, his worry deepening. Taylor lightly grabbed his arm and pulled up his sleeve, revealing the swollen, red marks. Did you eat something you're allergic to? Taylor asked, his voice filled with alarm. Marcel shook his head, tears welling up again. Unable to hold back, he started crying in front of Taylor. Taylor cupped his face, gently wiping his tears with his thumb before pulling him into an embrace. He felt stupid after he was done, for crying over something like this in front of Taylor. He told Taylor everything about his roommate, and Taylor sighed. Do you want to stay in my dorm until you can switch rooms next semester? Taylor offered. Marcel quickly refused, shaking his head. I don't want to bother you. It wouldn't bother me, Taylor insisted. I hate sharing my space, but you're an exception. Marcel still insistently denied. Seeing him every day was enough. He couldn't handle sharing a room with him, probably might be forced to listen to late-night calls with his girlfriend. Taylor frowned, but didn't push further. Instead, he took Marcel to the pharmacy to treat the bites. The pharmacist recommended an injection to reduce the swelling and redness faster, along with an ointment and bedbug repellent. Marcel hesitated, visibly nervous about the injection. Noticing his fear, Taylor stepped closer, gently guiding Marcel's head against his tummy, softly running his fingers through Marcel's hair. By the time the injection was done, Marcel barely felt a thing. While Taylor paid for the medication, Marcel noticed the pharmacist giving Taylor a lingering look. He immediately recognized what she was thinking and blurted out, He has a girlfriend. The pharmacist sighed wistfully. Of course he does. Once outside, as they walked back to the dorms, Taylor said with a smirk, I heard you tell the pharmacist I have a girlfriend. Marcel froze, mortified. You heard that? Taylor nodded. I'm actually single now. We broke up a while ago. Marcel's eyes lit up, and an involuntary smile spread across his face at the news. Realizing his reaction, he quickly wiped the smile away. How could he feel happy about Taylor's breakup? I'm sorry, he said hastily. I didn't know. It's fine, Taylor replied, waving it off. It was a mutual decision. We just weren't compatible. Marcel nodded, processing the information. Now that Taylor was single, his earlier refusal to move into Taylor's dorm changed. He hoped Taylor would bring it up again so he could reconsider, but the offer didn't come. When they reached Marcel's dorm door, Taylor sighed. Remember to come find me if you need anything. And don't forget to use the ointment and the repellent before bed. Marcel nodded, reluctant to part ways. As Taylor turned to leave, Marcel screamed internally, "Don't go. Ask me again to stay with you." He watched Taylor disappear down the hallway, then reluctantly opened the door to his own miserable room, already dreading the night ahead. Later that night, Marcel stepped out of the shower, applying the ointment and repellent. Dressed in pajamas that covered every inch of his body, he climbed into bed. He grabbed his phone and called Reese. As soon as Reese picked up, Marcel blurted, "Did you know Taylor and his girlfriend broke up?" Reese's reply was casual, "Yeah, that's old news." Marcel was in disbelief. "And you didn't think to tell me? I thought you were moving on from him," Reese answered. "Not if he's single and available, and I might have a chance." Marcel shot back. Reese sighed. "You still like him?" "I never stopped liking him," Marcel admitted. "Well, don't come crying to me if it doesn't work out. Who needs your comfort?" Marcel huffed, hanging up the call. He lay in bed for a moment, staring at the ceiling, before remembering Taylor's words about breaking up because of incompatibility. Curiosity got the better of him, and he decided to take a compatibility test for him and Taylor online. He called Reese again. "What do you want now?" Reese grumbled. "You're interrupting my game. You're grown. Go get a job instead of playing games all day," Marcel snapped. Reese hung up, but Marcel called again, knowing Reese would pick up. This time, he demanded, "Text me everything you know about Taylor." "Why?" Reese asked suspiciously. "Not your business. Just do it." Marcel quickly added before Reese could object, "I'll give you half my allowance. Deal." Reese hung up immediately and sent the text within a minute. With the information in hand, Marcel eagerly took the test. His heart raced as he waited for the result, even though he knew it was just an online test that meant nothing. When the result finally appeared, it read 50% compatible. "Well, it's better than zero," he muttered to himself. As he stared at the screen, he noticed movement out of the corner of his eye. A massive cockroach crawled up onto his bed. That was the last straw. Marcel bolted out of the room. Before he knew it, his feet carried him to Taylor's dorm. Standing outside the door, he hesitated. He raised his hand to knock, but stopped, realizing it was late. Instead, he texted, "Are you sleeping?" Taylor's reply came almost instantly. "No, not yet. What's up?" Marcel typed back, "A huge cockroach just climbed my bed. I'm scared." Seconds later, his phone buzzed with a call from Taylor. "Are you sure you don't want to move into my room?" Taylor asked, concern in his voice. Marcel replied, "I'm outside your room." Taylor was surprised, "Huh?" and walked to the door. Opening it, he saw Marcel. They both hung up the phone and Taylor walked to him. "Have you been standing here for long?" Marcel shook his head. Taylor reached out, grabbed his hand, and pulled him inside. Marcel stopped at the door. "What if there's a bedbug hiding in my clothes? I don't want to infest your room." Taylor chuckled softly. "You're fine. Don't worry." Marcel stepped in, glancing nervously around. Taylor asked, "Do you have an early class tomorrow?" Marcel nodded. "At 9 a.m. Then you should sleep now so you can rest properly. Just make yourself comfortable on the bed." Marcel blinked. "Where will you sleep?" Taylor replied, "On the bed. Unless you don't like sharing, I can sleep on the floor if it makes you uncomfortable." "No, no," Marcel said quickly, flustered. "We can share. It's your bed after all." He climbed onto the bed, patting the spot beside him. Taylor joined him, pulling the covers over them and making sure Marcel had most of the blanket. "Good night." Marcel mumbled back, "Good night." He turned away, his heart pounding as Taylor's scent, fresh shampoo filled his senses. As he closed his eyes, anxious thoughts kept him awake. What if I snore? What if I drool? What if I talk in my sleep? Unable to rest, he turned, his face inches from Taylor's. Taylor was already asleep. Marcel said quietly, "He even sleeps beautifully." He just stared at Taylor before sleep finally carried him. This was the first time in a long time he had enjoyed a good sleep. Marcel woke up the next morning to Taylor setting food on his table. Noticing him, Taylor said, "You're awake. Come eat something before getting ready for your class. I woke up early to get this for you." Marcel sneakily checked his breath before approaching Taylor. Those coconut oil pulls were finally useful. Spotting his favorite porridge on the table, Marcel asked how Taylor knew it was his favorite. Taylor replied, "I asked your brother, but for some reason, I had to pay for that information." Marcel mumbled under his breath, "That annoying rodent." Taylor glanced at him, chuckling, before grabbing a towel. wetting a corner and pulling Marcel closer. He tilted Marcel's chin, gently wiping the side of his lips. Marcel panicked internally. Please, don't let it be what I think it is. Sure enough, it was dried up drool. Wishing the ground would swallow him whole, Marcel embarrassingly sat down to eat with Taylor before getting ready for class. Do you want to bring your luggage in? Taylor asked casually. Marcel shook his head, explaining he didn't want to risk bringing bed bugs into Taylor's room. Taylor nodded. Okay, then you can wear my clothes until you disinfect your stuff. Taylor caught on and laughed. I'm sure I have clothes that'll fit you. They might be a bit big, but they'll do. He rummaged through his wardrobe and handed Marcel a couple of outfits, all carrying Taylor's distinct scent. Marcel tried to suppress a shy smile as he accepted them. Over the following days, Marcel stayed in Taylor's dorm, only returning to his own to grab essentials. He felt they were growing closer, but he couldn't shake the feeling that Taylor still saw him as his friend's younger brother. He wasn't a kid anymore and they were just 2 years apart, but it felt like Taylor still viewed him as the middle schooler he'd first met. One night, as Taylor helped Marcel blow dry his hair before bed, a sudden knock came at the door, followed by a voice announcing an inspection. Taylor panicked, looking for a place to hide Marcel. Dorm management often conducted random inspections to catch unauthorized residents or items like cigarettes or drugs. Forgetting that Marcel was a resident, Taylor scrambled to hide him, and Marcel decided to play along. In the end, Taylor pulled Marcel on top of him, covering them both entirely with the blanket. When the inspectors entered, they immediately noticed the suspicious lump under the covers. What's under there? They asked. Taylor stammered. It's my tummy. I really need to hit the gym, don't I? He let out an awkward laugh. Under the blanket, Marcel silently giggled and playfully bit Taylor's chest, making him shift and yelp softly. When the inspectors asked what was wrong, Taylor quickly lied. I hurt my back earlier. Just felt a sharp pain. Though suspicious, the inspectors left after finding nothing. As soon as they were gone, Taylor threw off the blanket, leaning up just as Marcel was moving out. Their faces ended up mere inches apart, so close they could feel each other's breath. Time seemed to freeze as they stared at each other, Taylor's heart skipping a beat. He quickly cleared his throat, helping Marcel up before turning away, flustered. Good night, he muttered, pulling the covers over himself to hide his burning face. On the other side, Marcel touched his warm cheeks, thinking that was close. We almost kissed. After a while, Taylor glanced over to check if Marcel was asleep, only for their eyes to meet again as Marcel turned at the same moment. Their gazes shifted from each other's eyes to lips before they both quickly looked away, hearts racing as they tried to calm themselves. Taylor initially thought the odd flutter in his heart was a one-time thing, but over the following days, he began to see Marcel differently. No longer was Marcel just his best friend's younger brother he had to look out for. He realized he'd been seeing Marcel in a new light for some time now, getting jealous whenever Marcel gave too much attention to others, wore clothes that revealed too much, or asked someone else for help instead of him. Taylor's heart skipped a beat whenever Marcel smiled at him, and he could do anything just to see that smile. The subtle changes in his behavior around Marcel were now obvious to him. As vacation approached, Marcel prepared to head home. Taylor, however, wasn't traveling back home because he had projects and assignments to finish. Besides, he was the only one who had come back after his family relocated. So, Taylor began, Are you moving to a different dorm next semester, or would you stay with me? We could make it a doubles room. Marcel blinked. Don't you hate having a roommate? Of course, he wanted to stay with Taylor. Taylor replied, Not if it's you. I love having you around, but it's fine if you want to move somewhere else. Without hesitation, Marcel shook his head. I want to stay with you. Taylor's smile widened as he nodded. Then, see you next semester? Marcel returned the smile shyly. When it was time for Marcel to leave, Taylor offered to walk him out. Taking Marcel's bag off his shoulder, he carried it for him as they headed to the road. Marcel flagged down taxis, but let several empty ones pass, reluctant to leave. Taylor, equally hesitant, didn't even notice. Finally, a taxi stopped. As Marcel got in, they waved goodbye. Marcel reached for his bag, but Taylor held on tightly for a moment before realizing what he was doing and letting go, rubbing the back of his neck in embarrassment. Call me when you get home. Marcel chuckled and nodded, closing the door as the taxi sped off. Back in the dorm, Taylor felt emptiness. Though he'd lived alone before, The room now felt quieter and lonelier. He tried distracting himself with studying but kept glancing at his phone every few seconds. When hours passed with no call from Marcel, Taylor's worry grew. He finally called Reese. "Hey, did Marcel get home yet?" "Yes," but before Reese could finish, Taylor hung up. Reese groaned. "I'm never answering anyone's calls again." Taylor decided to call Marcel, thinking he might have forgotten to check in. Reese sighed. "That's what I was trying to tell you." His dumb ass left his phone in the taxi. "Don't call him dumb. He's not dumb," Taylor snapped. "Is he getting it back?" Reese answered. "The driver picked up when we called and told him where to retrieve it." Taylor let out a breath of relief. "Let me know when he gets it," he muttered before hanging up. Later, when Marcel got his phone back, the first thing he did was call Taylor, even before getting home. Taylor didn't let it ring once before answering. Marcel explained the situation, and Taylor feigned ignorance, pretending he hadn't already interrogated Reese about it. The two talked about random stuff as Marcel walked home, not realizing he was walking, until he'd arrived home and the conversation was about to end. Each time it seemed, the call would wrap up, one of them asked a question to keep it going. They spoke until midnight, running out of things to say, but reluctant to hang up. In the following days, Marcel couldn't stop wondering if Taylor might have even the smallest feelings for him. He barged into Reese's room, asking, "Do you know Taylor's type?" Reese leaned back, smirking. "How much are you willing to pay for that information?" "I don't have any money for you," Marcel replied flatly. "Then I don't have any information for you." Marcel sighed. "Fine, I'll give you a third of my allowance next month." "Half," Reese countered. Rolling his eyes, Marcel turned to leave, but Reese called him back. "Fine, I'll take it." Marcel smirked triumphantly, turning back. Reese said, "Taylor doesn't really have a type, but he likes mature people. Do you think I'm mature?" Marcel asked. Reese looked him up and down. "Not even a little bit." Marcel smacked the back of Reese's head before storming out. Marcel thought that if he wanted to win Taylor over, he needed to start acting mature and doing adult things. His first step? Signing up for the gym to build some muscle. On his first day, he tried bench pressing, but the weight didn't even budge. He moved on to dumbbells, same. He resigned himself to the treadmill, snapping a picture and posting it on his story, for Taylor's eyes only. Thinking of other adult things, he realized he'd never had alcohol or gotten drunk. Determined, he went to a bar alone and ordered the strongest drink on the menu. Once again, he took a picture for his story, and only Taylor could see it. Taylor texted him almost immediately. "Who are you at the bar with?" Marcel lied. "With friends," Taylor replied. "Don't drink too much and stay safe," but Marcel was already too drunk to respond. Spotting some men smoking nearby, he decided to try it. Approaching them, he asked for a cigarette. They handed him one without question. He took a puff and immediately regretted it, coughing uncontrollably. Still, he stuck around with the men, ranting about his feelings for Taylor, while they listened attentively. Worried, Taylor called Marcel to check on him. Marcel answered, but his speech was slurred, and Taylor could hear the voices of unfamiliar men in the background. Alarmed, he asked, "Where are your friends?" "Which friends?" Marcel slurred, forgetting his earlier lie. Before Taylor could press further, Marcel unintentionally hung up. Knowing the bar Marcel was at from the picture he posted, Taylor immediately rushed over. When he arrived, he saw Marcel with his arms wrapped around a rough-looking man. Taylor stormed over, pulling Marcel away and glaring at the man, ready to throw hands. The man raised his hands defensively. "I didn't do anything, it was all him." Taylor sighed and turned his attention to Marcel, trying to steady him. Noticing the smell of cigarettes, he leaned in closer to confirm, sniffing Marcel's shirt, neck, and even his mouth. "Did you smoke?" Taylor asked, his voice laced with disappointment. "Why? Since when do you smoke?" Marcel only gave him a sheepish smile before passing out against Taylor's chest. With a heavy sigh, Taylor debated whether to take Marcel home or back to the dorm. He called Reese to ask, but Reese just replied, "Just dump him in a trash can somewhere." Hanging up, Taylor texted Reese, "I'm taking him back to the dorm in case you're asks." Taylor carried Marcel on his back, the dorm not too far away. Marcel clung to him tightly, muffled sobs escaping his lips. At one point, Marcel nibbled on Taylor's ear before biting it. The whole walk, Taylor was angry, disappointed, but mostly worried. When they finally reached the dorm, Taylor set Marcel down, but Marcel climbed onto the bed, regaining some consciousness. Seeing Taylor's stern expression, Marcel immediately started crying. Why are you looking at me like that? Taylor softened his expression. Is there a reason you went out alone to drink and smoke? Marcel sniffled. I just wanted to be mature so you'd like me back. Taylor sighed. You don't have to drink or smoke to be mature. That's just jeopardizing your health. You're already mature in your own way. So, you just won't ever see me as more than your friend's little brother? Marcel asked. He then slowly leaned in for a kiss. Taylor turned his head away. Let's talk about this tomorrow when you're sober. Some things should only be said or done when you're in the right state of mind. Taylor helped Marcel lie down. With Marcel's eyes closed, Taylor knelt beside him, gently caressing his face and wiping away a stray tear. Leaning in, he kissed Marcel's nose softly. I love you, he whispered before getting into bed next to him. The next morning, Marcel woke up with a splitting headache, remembering everything he'd done the night before. He wondered if people truly forgot their drunken antics or just pretended to. Then he recalled Taylor kissing his nose and whispering, I love you. Leaping out of bed, headache forgotten, he searched for Taylor. Just then, Taylor walked in holding food. Marcel ran up to him. Did you kiss my nose last night and say, I love you? Taylor didn't answer, instead smiled, walking past him to the wardrobe. From a box, he retrieved an envelope Marcel recognized. His love letter. You kept it? Marcel asked, stunned. I thought it got lost or something and never got to read it. Taylor replied, I never opened it because I kind of figured what it was. I didn't want to read it back then because then I would have to give you an answer which wouldn't be positive. Marcel's heart sank. Was this a rejection? I couldn't help but giggle a bit while reading it. Taylor added with asthma, you said you didn't read it, Marcel pointed out. I didn't at first, Taylor admitted, but after I started realizing my feelings for you, I couldn't help myself. Feelings? Marcel's eyes lit up. You have feelings for me? Taylor gestured to the letter. Why don't you read it? Marcel shook his head. No way. I don't want to relive the cringe stuff I wrote. Check the other side, Taylor said, curious. Marcel flipped the letter over. On the back, Taylor had written a response, a love letter of his own. The last part of the paper was Taylor asking Marcel to be his boyfriend. Marcel's eyes widened as he read it, his hand flying to cover his mouth. Tears welled up in his eyes as he nodded vigorously. Taylor asked, what part are you nodding to? The boyfriend part, Marcel answered, smiling through his tears. So, it's a yes? Taylor asked, smiling. Marcel jumped into his arms. Of course. Do you know how many times I imagined this day? Taylor held him tightly. I thought you'd stopped liking me. That's why I hesitated to confess when I realized my feelings. I mean, who would still like someone for that long? Feigning a straight face, Marcel replied, me. They both laughed, Taylor lifting Marcel off his feet as they hugged tightly. As Taylor helped Marcel steady himself, his eyes drifted to Marcel's lips. Marcel, noticing, let his gaze drop from Taylor's eyes to his lips as well. Slowly, Taylor began to lean in, closing the space between them. Just as their lips were about to meet, Marcel quickly covered his mouth with his hand. Taylor stopped. What's wrong? Still hiding his mouth, Marcel mumbled. I haven't brushed my teeth yet. Taylor chuckled. So? Marcel blinked, taken aback. So? He repeated, lowering his hand. Before Marcel could say anything else, Taylor leaned in and pressed his lips against Marcel's, smiling softly into the kiss. Marcel's eyes widened in surprise, but he quickly melted into the moment, tilting his head slightly to deepen the kiss. Their mouths moved together, the kiss firm yet gentle, their breaths mingling. Marcel wrapped his arms around Taylor's waist, pulling him closer, while Taylor's hands cradled Marcel's cheeks, his thumbs brushing softly against his skin. As Taylor's tongue swept gently against Marcel's, the kiss deepened further. The moment was interrupted by a phone ringing, forcing them to part. Marcel's heart still raced as he glanced at the screen. It was his mom calling. She was reminding him of the one-week family trip. He had completely forgotten about that. He didn't want to go, but it was a family tradition to bond. They spent the rest of the day glued to each other. That night, they cuddled in bed, sneaking kisses every minute. The next morning, it was time for Marcel to leave. Taylor walked him to the street to catch a taxi. As they strolled closely, their hands brushed, and Marcel hesitated, wanting to hold Taylor's hand but too shy to do it. Taylor noticed and smiled before intertwining their fingers together. When the taxi arrived, They reluctantly waved goodbye. Just as Marcel stood on his toes, hinting at a kiss, Taylor smirked and teased. What are you doing? Nothing. Just stretching, Marcel said, quickly lowering himself and turning toward the taxi. But before he could climb in, Taylor grabbed his hand and pulled him back for a deep kiss. The taxi driver impatiently honked his horn, making them finally part. Marcel hopped into the taxi, and it sped off as Taylor watched him disappear down the street. During the family trip, Marcel spent every free moment on the phone with Taylor. He even took Taylor along on their adventures through video calls. One time, Reese caught them blowing kisses at each other and faked a barf. What are you two doing? Are you dating? He asked. Marcel replied, not that it's any of your business, but we are. Reese grabbed the phone, addressing Taylor. How could you lower your standards like that? Him? Taylor's expression hardened. Be mindful of how you speak about my boyfriend. Reese scoffed in disbelief. Once upon a time, we were best friends who always defended each other. Now, I'm a nobody to you. Taylor chuckled. Stop being dramatic. We're still best friends and always will be. Marcel snatched his phone back. Shoo, we need some privacy. Reese grinned mischievously. I'm telling Mom and Dad you're dating Taylor. He ran off shouting and spilled the news. Marcel braced for their reaction, but they simply congratulated him, saying they were happy and supportive. Then they turned to Reese and teased, when are you finally going to date someone? Marcel burst into laughter, sticking his tongue out at Reese. The very next morning, after returning from the trip, Marcel packed his things and headed to school, even though it hadn't resumed yet. He wanted to surprise Taylor. However, Taylor had already spotted him from the window. Smirking to himself, Taylor hid behind the door waiting. When Marcel opened the door, eager to surprise Taylor, he was the one surprised instead. Taylor wrapped his arms around him from behind, kissing the back of his neck. Marcel turned around, sulking. You ruined my surprise. I was so excited imagining the look on your face when you saw me. Taylor chuckled and walked over to sit at his desk. Let's try this again. Marcel smiled, playing along. He stepped out, only to re-enter moments later. Taylor exaggerated a gasp of surprise, widening his eyes. That's so fake, Marcel said with a laugh. Taylor laughed too, walking over to Marcel, taking his hand, and leading him to the bed. They sat down, with Marcel settling onto Taylor's lap. Taylor leaned in for a quick kiss. I missed you. Marcel kissed him back. I missed you more. Taylor shook his head and kissed him deeper. No, I missed you more. Marcel kissed him back with equal intensity. No, I missed you more. Each I missed you more brought a deeper kiss until it ended in a makeout session. When school resumed, Taylor had his room converted into a double, adding an extra bed for Marcel. But Marcel never used it, choosing instead to sleep in Taylor's bed, wrapped in his arms every night.